You say daddy's home. Gentlemen, went straight to my head.
毎度リラクストレストラン
覚えてて
くれてるみたいだな。嬉しいね。てめえ一体何者？俺が俺はミスター
お前さ
オールブルって
知ってるかThought my
dream was dead.
now
I come to find out
it's possible with
with German
technology of all things.
things.
Firing.
He's a bitch.
We mixing some
hard, making some
rock after the jump.
start my heart
Quicker than the shot.
when I get shots.
At the hospital.
While the doctor
When I'm not
operating,
when I'm rocking it,
table while he's
operating.
you waited,
It's long to stop.
debating, cause I'm
Back, I'm on the
bragging, I'll be
rating.
I know that you got
Got a job, Miss
any
Cheney.
but your husband's
Heart problems.
complicated.
So the FCC
See, won't let
be or
me be.
me, so let
Me see,
me try to shut me down.
down on MTV,
But it
feel so empty.
without me.
He's so,
Come on and dip,
come on your lips,
fuck that.
come on your lips.
Some on your tits and
Get ready,
this shit's about
to get heavy. I
to
just
settle on my life.
lawsuits, fuck you.
Damn it, now
This looks like
good job for me.
he's so
Everybody just
follow me,
cause we need a
little
controversy.
because it feels so empty without me.
My father is
The worst.
man alive, and I faith.
Scientists and atheists, they make technology complex physiological experiments and sacrilege good. They taught me everything just like Daddy should.
You were a
Wonderful experience.
experience.
You were everything.
サンジ作ってくれるほらほらうまい言わないでお母さん失敗したんだ
a boy, friend. You, Marie, shall be blessed. It's just a rest. For many to carry, you can sing.
Should have been a should have been a should have been
A message to the smallest man who ever lived. Were you sent by someone who wanted me? Did you sleep with a gun underneath our bed? Were you writing a book? Were you ever satisfied? And will all be declassified in your confess why? You did. And I'll say good riddance, 'cause it wasn't sex you wanted, it wasn't forbidden. I would've died for your sins instead. I just died. You deserve prison, but you won't get tired. Sliding in by flip through the bars. You crashed my party and you're in some car. You said normal girls were boring, but you were gone by the morning. You kicked out the stage, the lights, but you're still performing. And in plain sight you hid, but you are what you did. And I'll forget you, but I'll never forget the smallest man who ever lived.
It feels
strange to
admit this,
but I suppose
I am human.
after all,
Even though
my son is
useless, I can't
bring myself.
to kill him. But you're saying
You'll go away
voluntarily. I won't stop,
then.
and
I'll gladly let
you
you
have the key to
that Iron Man. Listen,
Sanji.
before
You and I part
waits for the last
time. There is
something I must ask.
ask of you.
A favor.
No matter
What if anyone
whenever asks
about your family?
you
You
must never
tell them who
your father is.
Then your life becomes a better one. I made a man so happy when all those little ones. I hope my children come and visit once or twice. Ooh, now these 60 years old. Will I think the world is cold? Will I have a lot of children who can go me? Soon I'll be 60 years old.
Today I'm gonna do it so the idiots but say she'll know and then she'll say I'm not from me. I'll say then I'll call myself to say
But I got stamina. Running I close my eyes. I got stamina. Oh, I see my oh, every mind is up. I got stamina. Don't give up. Don't give up. No, no, no. Don't give up. I won't give up. No.
I've been confused as of late. Yeah. You step away. You make sense. You wake me up, but you trade me out if I too much. I leave the room or I'll break. You like this.
怒られる。
理由と
おお。あ
なんだ
あ。聞いてなかっ
だったのか
た。
とな海軍
来る。
俺
たち。
船
逃げる。わかるか。
な
わかるか。
なんで片言
なんだ文章で。
脳が筋肉
このバカにはこれ。
これぐらいがいいかと
よし。
お前
おっ
とて
切る。
えい
でも見た。
生まれて
すみません。
Chance I see it in the dark, baby. I like your friends
For the night that
we first met.
went home and tried
To stalk you on the internet. Now I've read all of the books
beside you.
you're good. The wine is
Cold like the shoulder
colder that I gave you.
in the street.
Cat and mouse
For a month or
two
two.
or three.
Now I got the
Night and watch
You
it
break.
Kiss me once,
Cause you know I
had a long night.
kiss me twice.
Cause it's gonna be
Alright.
three times. Cause
The way
I'm
to die home.
life. Light shine,
That's what I
marry you. Rings on, that's right.
what I want. Hey,
Accidents except from friends to
that's right.
darling. One-on-one picture.
I built this
House,
I
memory,
take my
picture,
now.
take it till you see
See
it.
it.
And when you
Legacy.
become your
Legacy.
promise the same time.
Oh,
船長
一人守れ
ねえでてめえの
やしもね
だろ。
うちの
船長は
誰かの
下につくような。ル
男じゃねえルフィは
フィは
海賊になる
やる男だ。
俺の
恩人なのは
ありがとう。だけど
サンジは返
せよ、
あいつは
俺の
仲間だ
サンジ
このそばいつも
でも泣くんじゃないいいどうぞここへもう
ダメよ。海は
おいいつか必ずいい人たちに会えるから。
帰る下級海
海賊だ俺の名はインスモーク
サンジ。
戻ってこいサンジお前がいねえと俺は海賊王になれ
Sanji.
Você não pediu?
Então eu vou com você
Nessa jornada
pra ser o rei
dos piratas.
Hã?
Serei o cozinheiro.
do seu navio.
Vamos juntos.
you told
yourself,
that it's
not you.
it's them.
You're
One of
a kind
and they know
one.
understand.
Those
Cry, baby,
baby just
keep coming
coming back.
again. In the hand to the voice in your eyes. Read up. You tug my heart straight from the deep.
Cause you mean so let me go.
Built this house on memories. Take my picture now, check it till you see it, and when your fantasies become your legacy, promise me a place in your house of memories. Cause you've time to time more than I thought I would. You were just too kind, and I was too young to know. That's all that really matters. I was a fool. Baby, we built this house on memories. Take my picture now, shake it till you see it, and when your fantasies become your legacy, promise me a place in your house of memories. I think of you from time to time, more than I thought I would. You were just too kind, and I was too young to know. That's all that really matters. I was a fool. Baby, I built this house on memories. Take my picture now, take it till you see it, and when your fantasies become your legacy, promise me a place.
なるほど。お前はどっち？
お前がいねえ。俺は海賊。
俺はジェル
間にはならねえ。地獄
を見せてやる。
メモリ
終わるから聞け。だが
決着の後、もし
俺が正気
じゃなかったらお前が俺を
殺せ。よしわかっ
だったらお前は
俺が
きっちり
殺してやる。なんだか知らん。
決着後の
楽しみができた。だって
それまで
死ぬなよ。俺は今
一流が
体が
変わろうが俺だ。そして
海賊お湯は
一の黒足の
もう3時だ。
Past me. I wanna
Tell you not
to get lost
in these petty
things.
your nemesis
Things.
will
Defeat them
themselves before
before you get the
chance to swing. And he's
passing by.
where
As the glimmer
of a comet
in the sky.
he feels like